What's going on, Rookie HQ? Welcome back to the channel. This is the latest episode of Blue Chips. I'm the authentic one, Mr. Matty Kiwoom. First and foremost, make sure you're subscribed to the Rookie HQ channel. Like this video and drop a comment. What comment, you say? Well, watch the video, then drop a comment based on what we talk about today. And speaking of what we're talking about today, we got a great episode lined up for you all today. We, ladies and gentlemen, are officially in the home stretch of the 2026 NFL draft cycle. The Senior Bowl is in the books. We can see that in the rearview mirror. The NFL Combine, oh, that is come and gone. We're seeing all the data come out. We got the pro days coming fast and furious. We are in the weeds. We're in the thick of it. We're in the NFL draft trenches, everybody. And at this point in the process, big boards, well, they are stabilizing. If you want to see the Big Board 5.0, head over to playerprofile.com. Check it out. You can see these tiers. They're becoming a little clearer. And we are starting to see a real consensus form, not just here on Blue Chips, not just here at Rookie HQ, not just here at Player Profile, but across the NFL draft industry as a whole. But as you probably know, this class is interesting. Because the more time you spend studying it, the more film you watch, the more you analyze the athletics, more the testing, the stats from the 2025 season, the more nuanced it becomes. And today, I am going to walk you through my top 10 takeaways from this 2026 rookie class, how strong the class actually is, where the position value debates should be, and what this means for both the NFL draft and maybe for your Dynasty rookie draft. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Takeaway numero uno, number one, this class is, I think it's a little better than we thought. Early in the draft cycle, including back in the 2025 season, the NFL season, the narrative about the class was that it was weak. It just wasn't really all that talent. There wasn't a lot of talent involved. But, you know, when you compare that to last year's class, the 2025 class, and next year's class, the 2027 class, I think that is where we kind of got this narrative. You know, that's where it really formed, is comparing it to the 25 class and the 27 class. And you know what they say? Comparison is the thief of joy, but I'm here to say I'm getting pretty excited about it as a whole. Now, I will say at the top, it's not necessarily sexy. We'll talk about more of that later on, but it is good. It's pretty deep. It's a good class, and it's worth getting excited about. And as the process unfolded, this class is showing depth. There's some high-end players, and not necessarily the ones that we have grown accustomed to year in and year out, but the depth is there, and there are exciting players at the top, so that's the makings of a good class. And we might not have, that slam dunk generational prospect even at the top, but we do have a nice cluster of players who project to be good, really strong NFL starters, and definitely players that we'll see in the league for years to come. And when it comes to these fantasy managers, I'm not going to forget it, y'all. This is a show about the NFL draft and the prospects involved, not fantasy. But again, if you're tuning in, you're a fan of Player Pro, you probably play a little fantasy. You're probably in a league or two. So for all you managers, I would say that the depth is what really matters more than the star power. Depth is where you can find the value pockets in your second, third, fourth round. And if you want to get a little bit more in depth for those second, third rounds, go check out last week's episode of the Futurecast. Me and Chev did a 2-round mock. And if you go to playerprofile.com right now, you'll get my article that dropped this week, which highlights the third round. So you get round 1, round 2, round 3, and you'll see there's some depth there, and you'll find some pockets of value. And overall, this is shaping up to be a class where smart roster builders will really pay off, whether it be fantasy or NFL. Takeaway number 2 is that the offensive line group in 2026 is good, but I don't know if the left tackle position specifically has a whole lot of guys that are going to stick there, if you know what I mean. It's a little scarce at left tackle. Because when you really look at the offensive line group, it's strong, right? I mean, we really like the players that are on, in this group. But we're seeing now that we were right in our analysis. The NFL's proving that. The scouting, community, the national guys are all saying the same thing, that there's good, talented offensive linemen, but we're looking at right tackles, we're looking at interior guys. But I like Francis Maui-Noa, Spencer Fan, who's my offensive lineman, 1. Vega Ione, those guys are really good. They're going to be awesome when they join the offensive line. Whatever team takes them, they're going to be very, very excited, because I think these guys are going to produce, and I think they're going to be long-term starters. I really like the players involved, but the wrinkle in all this is there may really only be one long-term left tackle that gets taken in round 1. And if you've been watching any of my content, you know who that is. That's Monroe Freeling from Georgia. He's got the size, the arm length, the hands, played at the SEC, and he's the guy that I am now kind of assuming is the left tackle of a team and can really anchor a team's offensive line, where the other guys, they're good. I like the skills. I think they present a lot of value. I think they'll be great for these NFL teams. I just don't know if they're going to stick at left tackle. So we do have a lot of great linemen, as I said. But when we're projecting out the guys who are going to block the blind side of a lot of these quarterbacks, that is going to be difficult. And teams drafting in the top 15 that need a franchise left tackle are going to probably feel a little bit of that pressure, because we're starting to see some mocks where Fanu falls or Maui-Noa falls, and it comes down to this. If you're looking for that left tackle, that blind side blocker, you may have to get Monroe Freeling, or you may strike out with that. All right, takeaway number 3, positional value debate. That's been very loud over these last few years. I think that this year we're going to get a really strong case study in terms of positional value and how that is debated, and we're going to see that in real time. And we are seeing this fascinating case study for positional value for this very reason. We're seeing a lot of guys, not a lot of guys. We're seeing people that are super plugged into the NFL draft and the scouting community. They're starting to mock not 1, but 2 safeties in the top 12, 2 linebackers in the top 12, and a running back as high as number 4 now to the Titans. Your boy also had that in his latest mock. So we could be sitting in a world after the first round, the first night of the NFL draft, where we see 1 quarterback, which makes sense, couple edge rushers, of course, that makes sense. But then we could see only 1 left tackle, but 2 linebackers, 2 safeties, and a running back, all taking early. So that's just not something we typically see when it comes to these modern drafts. The positions have really been elevated based on the value. So for years, we've heard that players, positions like the off-ball linebacker, safety, running back, they're not going to carry premium draft capital. Well, that is going to have to be put to the test this year, because they're good players. And when we're talking about Sonny Styles, when we're talking about Dylan Thieneman, when we're talking about Jeremiah Love, on top of, Caleb Downs and Arvell Reese, these guys that have been attached to the early part of first round this whole offseason, this whole cycle, now we're talking about guys that did great at the combine. So it's going to kind of really come to a head here. Are the NFL going to say, you know what, in this year, taking my hat off to those positions? And it's not so much about positional value as it is about talent. So I'm really, really excited to see how that unfolds. Takeaway number 4, wide receiver is deep, but there really isn't a clear-cut wide receiver 1. If you talk to 5 people who their wide receiver 1 is, you're probably going to get 3, maybe 4 different answers at this point. The wide receiver group, though, it is deep. I do think we see our typical 5, 6, maybe 7 first-round wide receivers selected. But we have a lot of players that kind of project to be wide receiver 2s, I'd say, in the NFL. We don't have like that Jamar Chase level prospect. And even back a couple of years ago, if you can remember, I think it was the 2024 draft, the 2023 draft, whatever draft had the Zay Flowers, JSN, and Quentin Williams, Quentin Johnston, all go in the first round. They all went in the 20s. In Jordan Addison, they all went in the 20s. Bang, bang, bang. In that draft, if you go back, I had JSN ranked as a very high-end prospect. Not just saying that because he blew up and now he's the richest wide receiver in the NFL. I was very high on JSN coming out of OSU. But what this class does share with that class is there's players that are good. but there's no Jamar Chase level prospect. We don't have a Marvin Harrison. We don't have a guy like Malik Neighbors. We don't have these guys. We're having wide receivers projected to be top 10 picks, but when I graded them out, I don't have any of them being top 10 players. Does the Browns take one at 6? Sure, it's possible. Does someone, like the Giants take one at 5? It's possible. But they will be reaching in terms of the prospect profile, in my humble opinion. But instead of, these high-end guys like Neighbors, Harrison, Chase, JSN, in my opinion, we have a cluster of players like Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, and a couple others that have, legitimate potential to go round one and potential to be NFL contributors right away. So I do think there's a nice depth to this wide receiver class. And then if you go a little bit deeper, I like guys, like my man Bryce Lance from South Dakota. I like Skylar Bell from UConn. I'm starting to really like Antonio Williams from Clemson. There's a nice depth of receiver, but unfortunately there's not that top guy. So depending on landing spot, we could see a major reshuffling in terms of fantasy value and how they're ranked. So going forward, I'm excited to see it, because this group is going to create potentially a really wide range of opinions when it comes to dynasty mock drafts, rookie mock drafts. That's why you got to come back to Rookie HQ for the FutureCast and tune in to Player Profile to get all that good stuff, get all those updates post NFL draft. Takeaway number 5, the edge rusher is clearly the strength of the class. And you're probably saying, Kiwoom, duh. Well, sometimes the obvious things still have to be said, right? If you need pass rushers, if you're an NFL GM and you're seeing your depth chart and you're going, we need more pass rushers, this is the class for you. Because I think we have legitimate impact players throughout not just the first round, but maybe the top 50, top 75 picks. There are some really good pass rushers that will be taken on day 2. And of course, at the top, we got David Bailey, Ruben Bain, TJ Parker, Akeem Mesidor, Keldrick Falk, Zion Young. All of these guys will be going, and maybe even more, will be going in round 1. But there's still some other guys, Malachi Lawrence, who's shot up on my big board, now a top 50 player for me, amongst others. There are going to be good players taken on day 3 at this position. So the edge rushing class is fantastic. Teams, they're always looking for pass rushers because you can never have enough. GMs are literally saying, I will take pass rusher after pass rusher after pass rusher after pass rusher, because you can never have too many guys in elite pass rushing rotation. This is a great class for that. You want to get guys that can get after the quarterback, this class has it. So expect a run early, middle, late when it comes to edge rushers in the 2026 class. Takeaway number 6, tight end could produce some stars. I wasn't all that excited about this tight end class, but after the combine, I think that we might get a couple of really good players at the tight end position. They may not be drafted in the first round. I know we'll get 1, maybe 2, but I think in the top 50, top 75, we get a handful. But I also think there are some guys that might be taken even on day 3 that could one day develop into a viable tight end. So I think for our rookie drafts, that's something we want to look out for. And I think overall, like I said, this tight end group is definitely better than some realize. Or at least I'll just speak for myself, is more than I realized at the beginning of the process. Of course, we got Kenyon Sadiq. He's highlighting the group, burnt down the combine. But I also really like players like Tanner Koziol, Max Clary, how you say it, Justin Jolly, Jack Endries, Sam Roush, amongst some others. And then I didn't even mention my favorite in the class, Eli Stowers. So if we get 2 tight ends in round 1, we know what that means, the correlation between first round tight ends and potential fantasy, reliable fantasy players. But I think this class is pretty deep. There's no Brock Bowers, I would say, but Brock Bowers was a different level of prospect in terms of tight end. I always say, doesn't matter what you saw from the guy, where his stature was. An SEC championship caliber offense designed their offense around him when he was 18. You saw him coming. There was a prospect, we may not see a tight end prospect again for a long time. But there are multiple guys in this class who will be starters right away, reliable players, contributors right away, and some others that after some seasoning, a little salt bay, maybe they develop as well. So I really like this class. And as we've seen in recent years, the tight end position can produce some surprise difference makers. Some like Sam Laporta. We didn't know he'd be a tight end 1 in fantasy any given year. These things happen. So, maybe 2 or 3 years back, some of these guys hit, and all of a sudden, we look back and go, this is a pretty pretty strong class in hindsight. Takeaway number 7, QB3 in this class will surprise people. And I'm not saying that like I have a take or I have a QB3, but whoever is the QB3, there will be a large patch of people that are shocked, whether it's Garrett Nussmeier, Carson Beck, Drew Aller, Taylor Green, whoever ends up being the QB3, whoever hears their name called third after, of course, Fernando Mendoza, the 101, the lock of all locks, and then Ty Simpson, who I have firmly locked in as my QB2. That QB3 is going to surprise people, whoever it is. It could end up being Cade Klubnik. I don't know. Crazier things have happened. I don't think it's going to be Cade Klubnik. I don't even have him ranked in my top 150 or 200 even. I have to play it out. But I don't know who it's going to be. But I know whether it's Nussmeier, Green, whether it's Aller, who's kind of shot up my board, Cole Payton, I don't know, Luke Altmaier, Cody Carpenter's boy. Cody's my guy, but he likes Luke Altmaier. I don't know. There's a lot out there. So all it really takes is one team to believe in one player that they can develop. And all of a sudden, it's crazy. And on top of all that, I think what could be really shocking is what do we know about QB? The value at quarterback, that inflation is as real as it gets. It is as straight up and down as 6 o'clock. So if a team falls in love with Drew Aller, or Garrett Nussmeier's, or Taylor Green's intangibles, or physical abilities, maybe they make a pick, take him in the second round and really shock people. So I think no matter what, the QB3 is going to shock a lot of people, regardless who it is. Takeaway number 8, if it wasn't for Jeremiah Love, this running back class would be as bad as the one we saw in 2023, I believe it was, the Jonathan Brooks year. This class is really deprived of talent at running back. You can convince yourself that Mike Washington's going to be good. You can convince yourself, like I have, that Jonah Coleman's the running back too. You can love Jadarian Price. You can mock him in round 1 like some of the big dogs have in the industry. However you want to cut it up, this running back class is super deprived of talent. And if it wasn't for Jeremiah Love, if it wasn't for a guy that's probably going to go in the top 5 first since Saquon Barkley, we would be talking about how bad this running back class is and how, maybe all-time bad it potentially is. Because, yeah, could a Nicholas Singleton, a Katron Allen, could these guys become, contributors at the NFL? Sure. But I think at this point, we're going to see a guy go at top 10, Jeremiah Love. We're not going to see another one in the first round. I think we may see some in that sweet spot, that 40 to 55 range, where we've seen Breece Hall and Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift. We've seen so many running backs go in that sweet spot. I don't see many going there. We saw that last year. Travion, Quinshon Judkins, all these running backs went in that second round. I don't think we see that. I think we see a massive gap between RB1 coming off the board and the rest of the field. Sure, could someone fall in love and take Price in the first round? I think that would cost some people some jobs. I don't know. The guy that is not a good recipe for success. So whether Nicholas Singleton ends up being a good player for someone, or Jonah Coleman ends up being a good player for someone, or Mike Washington does, someone may emerge. Kind of like we saw in that class a couple years ago, where it really was deprived of talent, but we still got a Bucky Irving. Someone's going to emerge. But if it wasn't for Jeremiah Love, we would be talking about how bad this running back class is overall. Takeaway number 9. This is an extremely athletic class, but I don't know how good they are at football. Because one thing that stands out from the combine was this class was very athletic. We saw great 40 times, great broad jumps. We saw a lot of 3-cone drills. We saw a lot of very good, very strong, very athletic testing in Indianapolis. It didn't matter if it's edge rusher, wide receiver, offensive line, even quarterback. Taylor Green burnt down. I mean, every single position just had athlete after athlete after athlete. Brendan Thompson came in and just ran a sub 4.3, and it was just like whoa, athlete. So at the end of the day, I mean, this class is very athletic, but again, I just don't know how good at football it will project to be. Traits are good. The NFL scouting community loves traits. They can be developed. Where we will see guys emerge as NFL starters, NFL contributors that we didn't even have on our big boards 5, 6, 7 months ago. And this athletic upside does create really good developmental opportunities. So it's exciting. That's why I went from really being down on this class to being relatively excited. I don't know in a fantasy sense, but overall, in terms of NFL team building, I'm pretty excited about the possibilities of these guys entering the NFL life, the NFL zeitgeist, the NFL ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, the league. Very excited for some of these guys, and it's mainly because of how athletic they proved to be in Indianapolis. Takeaway number 10, my last takeaway on today's video. Again, thank you so much for sticking around. Make sure you're subscribed to Rookie HQ, like this video, leave a comment. What's your biggest takeaway from this year's class? Takeaway number 10, don't expect to see a lot of trades in round one. That's my take. I don't think we're going to see a lot of trades. Why? There's not a QB to move up for, okay? Are you going to trade up for Caleb Downs? Are you going to trade up for David Bailey? Are you going to trade up for Monroe Freeling? Potentially. But here's what all the GMs have lingering at the top of their head. In the back of their mind, they're all thinking 2027, 2027, 2027. And because of that, I don't think we see a lot of movement in round one. And on top, several teams currently hold multiple first-round picks. Chiefs got 2 picks. Dolphins now have 2 picks. The Jets now have 2 picks. The Cowboys have 2 picks. So you would assume that with all those teams having these picks, that there might be some people really anchored down. They want to double tap the 2026 class. And on top of that, additionally, those teams are probably also going to try to trade out of the first round. So I think there's just going to be a logjam of where it can happen. And, of course, fantasy management is not the same as building a team in the NFL, but there are some similarities. And one is sometimes the trade market can freeze up. People want to, hold on so tightly to future picks, and they just don't see the value in moving up. But teams are still, pricing the move up costs the same as they always do. And because of all that, I think we get a logjam. We get a chance where, I think we get teams just very hesitant to move future picks, to use the capital to move around. And I think more teams are going to want to move back. So if everyone wants to move back, no one can move back. So I think with all this having said, like multiple teams with first-round picks and all this stuff, I don't think we see a lot of movement. Of course, we'll get maybe 1 or 2, but usually we see a handful. Some trades that come out of left field. I don't really expect that in this year's draft. So that's it. My top 10 takeaways. And here's my closing thought here. So maybe a bonus takeaway. This class is more interesting than it appeared. Okay, so let me sum it up. It doesn't have the generational prospect, but it does have depth. It's super athletic. And I could see a lot of different outcomes when it comes to the first round, which just makes it so exciting. Not just for us on NFL Draft Night, which, of course, you can go to Player Profiler, see us live. We'll be there in Pittsburgh, boots on the ground, bringing you every single pick. But that does present some fun opportunities, fun chaos, if you will, in fantasy football. So it is going to be very, very exciting. That's it. That's the show. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for coming to Rookie HQ, helping build this thing. So make sure you like this video, subscribe to Rookie HQ, leave a comment. What's your favorite takeaway? What's your biggest, most important takeaway from this year's class? I'm the authentic one, Mr. Matty Kiwoom, and I will see you next time.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.